Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
G'day guys, welcome to the show. Phil Tarrant here. I am the editor of Smart Property Investment. We're going to pick up the theme that we've been, we piloted a little while ago, a couple of weeks back, where we started answering a lot of Q&As that we're getting from our listeners. It resonated really well. We've had some great feedback on the answering of people's questions that they're sort of tweeting in and emailing in. So we thought we'd do another podcast, and we're going to do this sort of into the future as well, regular sort of Q&A focus where we listen to what you guys are saying, and hopefully we can offer you some advice and intelligence and interpretation on what other people are seeing in the market at the moment, some of the activities of other investors. So if you have any questions for us, we've got a raft of experts that we can bring in to help us answer these. As you all know, I'm just a humble journalist. I write, I podcast, I do all this sort of stuff. I am a property investor. Essentially, when we answer these questions, I always come from the context of what I'm doing and the way I see the world, but it is my opinion. So I need to preface the upcoming podcast with a bit of a disclaimer. Viv, my regular co-host, how are you going?
I'm good, thanks. And I can't thank the listeners enough for flooding my inbox with questions for you, Phil. So I also offer an apology to everyone out there who I haven't gotten back to yet, but I have filed your question away and we will get to it. And if you're really desperate to hear from us, just hassle me, send me another email, give me a bit of a poke and we'll get to it.
Excellent. So one thing you can do for us all our listeners, if you can keep those reviews coming on iTunes, that'd be really handy. So The purpose of this podcast is to inform and educate. That's why we're doing this. And the more people that we can get involved and get part of the community to understand the realities of property investment. I guess also, Viv, to demystify a lot of the smoke and mirrors you often see within property investment. My personal position is investing in property is not hard as long as you do it the right way. But I think a lot of people get lost and stuck and caught up in a lot of the emotion around it all and make wrong decisions. So keep the reviews coming on iTunes, guys. It means more people will find us and we get more people involved and connected and hopefully make smarter property investment decisions moving forward. In terms of a disclaimer, guys, this is just an opinion. My recommendation is that any of these questions or your own personal circumstances, you need to go and see a good advisor, be it a financial planner, an accountant, a buyer's agent, or your mortgage broker. Make sure you get all the information you need to know to make sure it matches your personal buying and investment decisions. So to help us out today, we've asked Rich Harvey back onto the show. Rich joined us in our first Q&A session, and we thought we'd bring him back. We thought he did a pretty reasonable job. Rich runs a buyer's agency called propertybuyer.com.au, but Rich has been out there for 15 years, so he's pretty much seen all walks of life, and he's pretty well versed to answer most questions in regards to property investment. So, Rich, thanks for coming in, mate.
Pleasure, Phil. Great to be here.
So, what we'll do, Viv, I'm going to throw over to you, and you can lead us through this.
Cool. Well, last time that we had Rich in, we answered questions from Rebecca, Colin, and Jody, but we just couldn't get to them all. So we've got sort of a few others that have rolled in recent weeks. So we'll get straight to it. Phil, I get a lot of questions because you talk so openly about your portfolio, and whenever you talk about it, I often get emails asking about the way that you've structured your portfolio. So this question comes from Sharon and is about how you have set up your portfolio and why you did it this way. Sharon wrote to us in August and said, "Hi Phil, I follow every episode of the SPI Show." Good work, Sharon. "It's really awesome, very interesting and educational. In your podcast titled 4 Properties in 4 Months, the SPI Show gives the inside scoop on its portfolio," which, by the way, guys, is episode 34 and was one of our most popular podcasts to date. So go have a listen. It went up around the 19th of July, I think. Sharon goes on, "You mentioned all the properties you've purchased are under trust structures. What are the main benefits of purchasing under trust? The costs associated to set up and maintain trusts can be quite high, especially when you have multiple properties. You can be paying multiples of $1,000 per annum on accounting fees for trusts. What do you see as the main pros and cons? Regards, Sharon." So, Phil, any insights for Sharon on why you went down this route and its pros and cons? I do get the trust structure question a lot, and to be honest, I myself don't really know why you invest this way. So what's your thinking here?
It's a bit of a headache investing in the trust, my circumstances. So for smart property investment, and one of the reasons why we created this product, Viv, as you know, was to demystify all the investing in property. So as a journalist and reading all the stories that we've seen over the years about all these people making millions of dollars overnight in property, and my sort of bullshit radar said something's not right here. So we thought, let's do it ourselves. Let's do it with smart property investment. we started Smart Property Investment. One of the reasons was to highlight how to invest in property. So for us, I invest for the purpose of the portfolio for Smart Property Investment with my business partner. On that basis, we thought investing in a trust was the best structure for us to do that. Obviously, I invest in property outside of that trust structure as well, but that's the other stuff that I do. For us, investing in the trust was important for a number of different reasons. We had a lot of advice around this, particularly on behalf of our accountant, but because I invest with someone, that's the best structure for us. There's also a lot of other reasons that we do it. My recommendation was speak to an accountant to make sure that investing in trust is right for you, and Rich can talk a little bit more about that moving forward. For us, we have 3 different trusts for this particular portfolio. We have a number of properties in every trust. For us, one of the negatives of investing in a trust, when we started buying, and you would have seen it in episode 34, we bought a lot of properties in western suburbs of Sydney really early on. It pretty much capped us out in terms of land tax pretty much straight away. So if we were investing personally, that would have done that. For us, you don't get any tax, you don't get any land tax breaks investing in a trust in New South Wales, and that's a real hassle. So it's a big cost for us. We understand that cost, and we took that in consideration when we started investing in a trust. Land tax got quite expensive for us in New South Wales. One of the reasons why we moved to Queensland was to try and minimise some of those costs, but also when we were buying in western suburbs of Sydney, the reasons why we were investing there at that point in time 5 years ago weren't there sort of 2-3 years ago. So hence the reason why we shifted our strategy and moved up to Brisbane as well. Investing in Brisbane in the trust, you do get some thresholds in terms of land tax, and then once you sort of near that threshold as well, and obviously speak to your accountant, you can set up new trusts and actually start getting that threshold again. So really complicated, long-winded response, and I probably need a whole podcast to talk about it. So Sharon, that's sort of a really, really quick view of why we invest in a trust, but by and large, and speaking to the number of different accountants that I speak to, simplicity is key. It is a headache investing in a trust. There's a lot of compliance that needs to be associated with it. If you can invest in your personal name, I'd invest in your personal name. Rich, what do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I think it's a good question to ask. I get asked this question all the time. And again, disclaimer, I'm not a qualified financial advisor or an accountant, so do speak to a professional accountant. A couple of the pros and cons, I use trust structures myself. And I think, look, the general sort of view I have of the world is like you feel, keep it simple. You know, that's the general principle, and minimise your cost. But you do want to be a smart investor. I mean, that's what you've called your company, and it's important to be smart. Some of the cons of investing in a trust structure is just the cost of setting it up. You know, it's going to cost you about probably $2,000 for the trust and $1,500 for the company, and you obviously lose that tax threshold in New South Wales, which is about $480,000. In Queensland, it's about $600K, so it is a bit higher there. But the benefits, on the flip side, the benefits are that you are protecting your wealth. So when you have a property in a trust, it effectively quarantines it from someone else trying to litigate and take something against you. So if you're in perhaps a litigious industry, like you're a doctor or a medical person,
or in the media,
exactly. There you go. You're a target. So someone could come after you and try to take your wealth, and it might have taken you 20 years, whatever, to build up your wealth. Have it in trust, and you're protected. Another thing is you can also minimise your tax. So it is expensive to set it up, but down the track, if you want to hand over that property that you've had for 20, 30 years to your kids, you can transfer the ownership of that property without paying duty. So you can basically rewrite the directors of the company, of the trust, and then give that to your children. So there's intergenerational wealth that you can plan for, and that's quite a good thing down the track. And also, if you have a trust, you can distribute your income a lot more effectively to other entities or to individuals. But obviously, if it flows through the trust, it's going to be taxed whoever ends up holding the money at the end of the day. So there's a couple of pros and cons, and each person's got to weigh it up. So I think in general advice, if you're in a sort of a PAYE job earning, a general employee, you're probably going to buy it in your personal name. But if you're in another kind of industry or you work for yourself, then a trust structure may be more appropriate.
Yeah, and I challenge your accountant also on this. We spoke about not all real estate agents being created equal in the last podcast that we did on our Q&A stuff, and it's very much the same with accountants. Some exceptional accountants out there, and some accountants are very good in particular disciplines. My experience is that not all accountants really understand property investment as well as they might understand sort of, the advice they can provide to a business owner. So challenge your accountant. I speak to a number of different accountants about how you should structure investing in property, and I'd get a number of different bits of advice on it.
Great. So we also get lots and lots of questions about the people you've used to help build your portfolio, Phil, and indeed how to find the right people to make up your property A team. Rich, I'm sure you're a big advocate of using professionals to get the most out of your portfolio as well. So Here we have an email from Rachel Beedman about how to find the best professionals. So she wrote in a while back, so sorry about that, Rachel, and said, "Hi Phil, I'm a regular listener to your show and always enjoy listening to people's experiences, lessons learnt, and great tips from the people who have done it. I've been in the real estate industry for many years, worked in the UK and the last 7 years in Sydney running property management business, currently with McGrath. I've just started investing and recently purchased a 4-bedder in Springfield Lakes and about to go for property number 2 in Raceview, Queensland, with the help of Paul at Pure Property, who incidentally, for keen listeners out there, featured on our podcast in episode 38 back in August, where he talked about identifying under market value properties. So go and have a listen. But back to Rachel. Hopefully this is the start of a successful investing journey, she said. My questions are, if you have the time to advise, how do I choose a good tax accountant? Do you have any recommendations? I live in Crows Nest, Sydney, but work across north, northwest and eastern suburbs, so getting around is easy. 2, I'm using a mortgage broker, Melanie Cunliffe from Indigo Finance, Paul from Pure Property as a buyer's agent, but don't have a financial advisor. Should I? And if so, who do you recommend? She gives us a little bit of context as well and says a little bit about me. 48 years old, renting in Crows Nest with my partner. I have 2 grown-up children who have both left home. I've been a licensed real estate agent and business broker, although never used the broker part, for 21 years, 7 years in Sydney from the UK. I'm not a sales agent, but have been and loved it in the UK. I'm bitten by the investment bug and would like to consider that route and as a buyer's agent for a future career move. Any good contacts or suggestions? I've got heaps of other questions, but I know your time is precious. Would love to hear from you and thank you in advance for reading my email. Have a great day, Rachel Beedman. So firstly, thanks so much for your email, Rachel, and we will try to tackle your questions one at a time. So let's go with the first one first. Do you guys think Rachel, or indeed investors in general, need a good tax accountant? Why and how can they find one?
I'd say absolutely yes. I think, I always use this line, you don't know what you don't know. And if you want to be an expert in tax law, go ahead and you'll get insomnia reading the Tax Act. I definitely think you need a good accountant. And you've got to find one that regularly works with property investors. That's a key. One that understands the ins and outs of the benefits of tax law around property investment. Find also one that obviously sticks within the tax law and is not too aggressive in terms of their structures and their approach. And one that just gives you a tailored solution for your own individual circumstances. You don't just want an off-the-shelf accountant that just has one solution for everyone. It is very much a tailored solution. So find someone that's got experience and ask for a recommendation.
Read ahead of these questions before. I sort of answered this question. The last thing I was talking about not all tax accountants are created equal. We've got an exceptional tax accountant, Keshab, which is based out in Parramatta. The accountant that we have, a guy called Munzrul out there at Keshab, he's a property investor. He's got a massive portfolio, that guy. He knows it. He's a sort of ex-PwC or one of the big accounting firms guys who set up his own practice, and he's an avid property investor. He's an advocate of property investment. He knows property inside out compared to any other accountant I know. He knows it, he lives it, he breathes it, and he's done it. You speak to a lot of accountants and they don't invest in property. They'll probably have their stuff in, other asset classes. So let's look at the A team. That's what we sort of spoke about at the front of the question. What is an A team? A team's, on pro advice. I don't proclaim to be an expert in property investment, but I'm pretty smart in understanding that I need people to help me create wealth through property. So from the absolute get-go, I said, I'm going to get people to help me out. And they are a good accountant, a good mortgage broker, and a good buyer's agent. We found a really good buyer's agent, Right Property Group. Great operators, know it inside out. They put us into every single property and have done a great job. Have an exceptional mortgage broker. We use Aussie out in Parramatta, a guy called Ross. He's Aussie's number one mortgage broker. He's also a property investor. He's got a portfolio which is large as well. So all these guys are property investors and they get it. Just make sure that any advisor you use gets it. Even mortgage brokers. You want a mortgage broker, they invest in property.
So when it comes to accountants, is there such a thing as someone sort of chasing down too much at tax return time? I know when it gets to tax time here at Momentum Media with the journalists, it can be a bit of a race to the bottom. Who can get the dodgiest accountant to get them the most money back? What's your advice to property investors in this way? Should they be trying to get everything and anything they can back, or is it more important to find someone, as you say, who really knows property?
Yeah, it's a much bigger question than that. It's about an accountant understanding what you're trying to do by investing in property. So obviously It's a wealth creation tool, investing in property. A lot of accountants, and again, we're not qualified to talk about this, but I'll speak anecdotally. A lot of accountants will be looking at how to maximize your tax return as much as possible, or if you're a self-employed, trying to pay as little tax as possible. Obviously, that all needs to happen within the confines of the law, but if you're looking to drive down your income and not show profitability in the business, and that's really going to impact your ability to borrow. So a property investor, what do you need? You need to be able to borrow money. How do you borrow money? Well, you need to be able to show to the bank that you can service a mortgage. Now, if you can't do that, it's going to essentially hamstring yourself rapidly in terms of investing in property moving forward. So specifically an accountant, you need to actually get an accountant who understands what you're trying to achieve, that has a strategic view on this, and not just be a compliance operator. They need to go be an advisor.
That's right. They've got to look at the structure. It's not just about tax minimisation. It's about getting the right structure in place. And as Phil said, you've got to prove serviceability. Serviceability to the banks is gold. That enables you to then buy more properties and grow your wealth. That's a really key thing. So I think and just sort of twirling on this idea of the tax advisor, one of the things a lot of people forget about is getting a quantity surveyor, depreciation reports at tax time. And there's some great companies out there, but every investor must get a depreciation schedule for their property. You don't have to get it immediately the day you buy your property, as long as it's done before you do your tax return. Another thing a lot of people forget when they renovate is scrapping reports. A lot of people have no idea what's a scrapping report.
On one of our properties, we scrapped a whole bunch of stuff, and our accountant went, well, what are you doing here?
You lose thousands. You lose thousands, Phil. Yeah, exactly. So if you're any renovators out there, go and get a quantity surveyor to go in and write down all the depreciable items that are left. It could be the carpets, the blinds, the finishes, and they'll write a report. And if you're going to renovate that, you can write off the value of those items immediately in the year that you're doing the renovation. So there's a great tax save there. I mean, the cost of these reports is around $500, $600, but you more than make that back in the tax deductions that you get.
And a good accountant will be able to advise you on that as well, because scrapping in particular, there's a lot of, you need to be scrapping it at a point in time of whether or not had investors in there or you just bought it new, and there's a lot of stuff that you're never ever going to know about it if you try and do this stuff yourself.
The other tip, Phil, is don't get the accountant to do the scrapping report. Get one of the quantity surveyors to do it. Like the accountants will say, oh, but you've got the number here, I can just use that. No, get a report from someone like BMT or Washington Brown or Depreciator, and they'll do it for you and do it very, very thoroughly.
So Rachel also wants to know if she needs a financial advisor there in the mix. What do you think about this? Is there such a thing as too many chefs in the kitchen? How many professionals do property investors need, and which ones are the most important ones?
I think anyone who's going to add value, and you need to be discerning about who you need to have as part of your sort of advisory team or your A team. Buyer's agents sort of operate in quite a strange world, Rich, and you could probably talk about this a little bit more. Fortunately, there's no regulation in property advice at the moment. Pippa, who's the sort of peak body for the property investment professionals of Australia, have been working hard on government quite some time to try and get some regulation around this. But as it sits right now, there's no real regulation around people providing advice around property. So it's a bit of a murky world, property investment advice. There is a lot of people, and you've probably seen it, you just got to Google property spruiker, and you'll see some alarming stories over the years of people just getting taken for a ride. Well-dressed blokes in suits who talk really well, selling the dream about property investment and fleecing people. So you need to be exceptionally careful about who you take advice from in property, and you need to understand why people are providing you that advice. Now, if you're paying a fee for that advice, that's typically a good thing. So that person is operating on your behalf. People are offering you free advice and making recommendations to you to purchase particular properties.
You've got to question where the money's coming from.
You've got to understand where some people got to get paid somewhere along the way. So you're speaking here about financial advisors. My experience with financial advisors, and I highly recommend that you get educated about the people who can help you with advice, but you need to understand how advisors can help you. So if you're looking for a wealth creation strategy, a wealth creation goal, you need to speak to advisors around that. That might be a financial advisor, it might be a really good accountant. Obviously, buyer's agents will help you along that path as well. With the financial advisors, you need to understand how financial advisors are paid. My experience is that there are some very, very, very good financial advisors that have a property bent, but there is a lot of financial advisors who don't even look at property. They'll look at putting you into other asset classes. And that sounds a little bit hard, but it goes back to the advice that you're getting, how you're paying for that advice. Would you say it was fair, Rich?
Yeah, I agree totally, Phil. I think you're really on the right track there. I agree in terms of your sentiment. Choose an advisor that's fee for service, not taking a percentage of your overall wealth, or trying to put you into a managed fund and take a cut of that just because they're going to place you into that investment and they're going to get a big kickback. So I personally use a financial advisor, and even at my stage, I think is absolutely critical because, as I said before, I don't know what I don't know. And I use a financial advisor for a couple of reasons. One, they keep me on track. Two, they keep me accountable. And they look at each investment that I make. I want to get toward a goal of financial independence. And what that advisor does, they're like a board of directors. They're there to help you make decisions and say, is this next investment getting me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? And that's what a financial advisor does. They're going to protect your wealth. The other things the advisor should do, the financial advisor, is get your insurances right. So income protection, life, trauma, TPD, those kind of things. A lot of people forget to do that. They might get a whole portfolio of 10 properties, not insure their income, and that's the thing that's keeping the whole thing going. So again, they're all tax deductible things that people should be doing. So getting someone sort of a bit left of centre and removed from your situation who can look at it objectively, holistically, I totally recommend. And just on the using a buyer's agent, Phil, in terms of who to use, I totally agree. You've got to get someone who's firstly licensed and operates licensed in the state where you're buying. They should be a member of PIPA and also a member of REBA, the Real Estate Buyers Agent Association. Now, both those groups have a very strict code of ethics, and you want to work with an advisor that's got your best interests at heart and not getting secret kickbacks along the way.
So just looking more generally at Rachel's situation, it's something that we find quite a bit. Once people's kids leave home, they really start to look at the future and start ramping up their investment endeavours. So why do you two think this is, and any advice for people at this stage of their life? Is it a mad rush to retirement, or is there still time to build a solid foundation once you have an empty nest?
I reckon, irrelevant of whether or not it's time to start investing in property because your children are left home or you still have children sitting at home, if you're not yet in property investment and you want to get into property investment, get into property investment as quickly as you possibly can. For this particular circumstance with Rachel, I don't know why this, or whether it's been a trigger to start investing in property, but as soon as you can feasibly afford to invest in property, start doing it. I wish I started investing in property a long time ago. I spent my sort of 20s travelling around drinking beer and spent all my money doing that, and didn't really get going at it until I was in my 30s. I wish I started ages ago and prioritised it. So my advice, get going as quickly as you can. Don't procrastinate too much. Get educated, understand what your goals are. And as we've just spoken about, there are a number of different advisors that are out there that can put you and give you a roadmap or a blueprint to invest in property. But as soon as you start doing it, start doing it.
I mean, Rachel's 48, and that's definitely not too late to start investing. I do see a lot of clients come to us and they might be in their 50s and they think they've just got their own home and they haven't started, and they think, oh, have I left it too late? No, you haven't left it too late, but they're just going to have to calibrate their expectations as to what they can achieve in the next 10 to 15 years before retirement. So I think with the empty nesters, they've got more disposable income. So, they've got the kids out of school, they've got rid of those school fees and all those other expenses in raising expensive teenagers, which is what I have at the moment. So they eat us out of house and home, But as you get closer to retirement, you do get more motivated with those decisions, and it's really important, whatever stage, but particularly as you're heading toward retirement, not to make mistakes in the decisions you're making, and that's where the advice comes in, as you say, Phil. And don't take shortcuts. A lot of people think, oh gosh, I've only got 100 grand in my super fund. I've got to really ramp it up, so I'll go and do really fancy CFDs or options or some other fancy kind of course to get rich quick. Don't do that. Just get solid investment properties behind you, get the right advice, and you'll do well.
See, I don't touch any of that stuff, like CFDs. I know a lot of people make good money doing that sort of stuff, right? Number one, I have the time to do it. It's a full-time job, Nelly, to start investing in stuff. Yeah. And I don't understand. I get it, but I don't understand it to the depth that I understand property. So for me, property makes a lot of sense because I'm creating wealth through property. It doesn't take a lot of my time to do it because I'm outsourcing most of the advice that I get around it. And you know what? If I'm not focused on it at any point in time, the properties that I've bought, which has been based on a good blueprint, a good strategy, are doing what they should be doing, and they're going up in value.
They're almost not quite a set and forget type of strategy, but there's a fair bit of work to get one set up. But then if you've got the right property manager, you've got the right accountant, it's going to run itself going forward. And you watch, Phil, in a couple of years, look at your portfolio and you'll be surprised. Gosh, the rents can go up, a couple of percent a year. The values are going up a couple of percent a year. It's going to perform for you.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And that's why I invest in property. It's a long-term play. Over time, when I get to a point when I want to retire, I can't see myself doing that because I enjoy working. But it's going to give me, like you, Rich, the flexibility to have a nice, comfortable latter part of my life.
Exactly. Yeah, you look. My analogy is like a baby. You nurse it, you feed it early in the years, and it's going to look after you in later life.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, Sharon and Rachel, I hope that answered your questions. And unfortunately, we're out of time again, but we will make this a more regular segment, answering all the questions that have poured through and clogged up my inbox. So if you do have a question or you want anything further clarified about Phil's portfolio and what we've talked about today, just shoot us an email, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, and I will get back to you at some point this year.
Yeah, good. No, let them flood in. We'll make a commitment, Viv, that we'll do this on a really regular basis. So do send your stuff in and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. I know there's a lot more questions out there that we really need to start addressing. And contextually, this is a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is real specific to people's circumstances and situations. If you just want some general opinions on just the world at large as well, we don't want to talk about specific property locations and suburbs. There's a lot of information online, in particular smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, where you can do so much research around this sort of stuff. But the sort of themes, strategy, trends, that sort of stuff, let us know right in. If there's anyone that you particularly want to hear from on the show, let us know. We'll get them in as well. But Rich, mate, let's get you back again as well.
Love to be here, Phil. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, mate, appreciate your insights. As I said earlier on, the world of property advice is evolving rapidly, which is a good thing. And there are more and more people being attracted from a professional level into this market to assist Australians be more effective at buying a property. You've been at it for 15 years, mate. You're probably one of the first starters in this space. But there's a lot of other buyers agents now coming into the market.
And I'm really, one of the things I'm doing, Phil, is I'm pushing for greater regulation. I'm actually pushing for a definition of the word buyer's agent in the Property Stock and Business Agents Act. And we're also pushing for greater education and licensing standards for buyer's agents specifically, because there's more and more people coming into that field, and it's not regulated enough to the extent it should be. So we want to make sure they've got robust standards. Like mortgage broking, you want to have robust standards in the industry where they're providing a service to consumers for a very expensive purchase, and that's how it should be.
No, it's good. So I guess summarise this podcast, a couple of points I would make. Number one, question the advice that you're getting and understand who you need as an advisor. And as part of that, I guess you need to understand how the advisor gets paid. I'm pro advice, I'm pro fee for service. So if you're not getting charged for advice, you need to answer and ask a question where the person's getting paid for doing it. Number two, not all advisors are created equal in terms of the advice that they can give you. So if you're going to choose an advisor to make them part of your A team, whether it's a financial planner, accountant, a buyer's agent or a mortgage broker, I'd probably want to make sure that they're a property investor themselves. And if you stick to that, you're probably going to do pretty well. Nice. All right, Viv. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Good to have you on the show. Rich,
Thanks,
good, mate.
Phil.
Remember to tune into smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. You can follow us on all the social channels, Facebook, Twitter, etc. You can follow me at Philip Tarrant. You can follow Rich at Rich Harvey. Yep. Yeah, you can check out Rich's business as well, propertybuyer.com.au, which is a great URL, by the way. How long have you had that for?
15 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The name says it all.
Yeah, it's just smart. If you want to know more about all this stuff, the different type of advisors that there are out there, go to the website. Just search on the website, property buyer or accountant, or how to find an accountant or whatever, and there'll be so much information there to help you on your way. What I ask of you guys is just keep those reviews coming on iTunes. Let's keep making this podcast and this community bigger and brighter. Look forward to you tuning in next week. Thanks. See ya. Bye.